level with me. How do you create the perfect backstory? The spoiler, you don't. Hello and welcome to Level With Me, the YouTube channel where we can level up our TTRPG experience together. My name is Will, and today we're going to be discussing creating the perfect backstory when it comes to creating a character. It's something that me and one of the boys at work were discussing, and these are my thoughts on it. Shout out to Rob, better known as That Blue-Haired DM on TikTok. The link to his profile will be in the description. We bounced around a few ideas before ultimately deciding that the perfect backstory simply can't exist. Before we jump into the video, just a reminder that this table works with shared experience, so any tips, tricks, or thoughts on the subject, leave them in the comments below to dish out some XP to the other players in our community. Okay, so out the gate, we have acknowledged that the perfect backstory just can't exist, and I'll say the reason is really obvious. Later in the video. I'm not going to tell you now. I need the watch time, don't I? Come on, people. But let's see how we can set up your character with a backstory that will ensure that you have a good, solid experience within the campaign. Name NPCs from your history. Every person, whether real or fictional, has some kind of family. Whether they like them or not, whether or not they're biological, whether they're family they were given or family that they've chosen. We all have family of some kind. Using names for people in your character's backstory not only fleshes out their life, but also gives you, the player, more of a connection to that NPC, allowing you to sympathize and empathize with them more regarding their situation. No matter how slight, if you have this little connection to the NPC, then you're going to be more inclined to help them in their time of need, or vice versa, allow them into the party to assist you in your quest. This will also help the dungeon master in the long run, because if they know the NPC's name and how they're related to you in whichever way that is, they're going to be able to cater a quest with a plot hook that's going to be more appealing to you to grab hold of. This is something that I failed to think about in my first character's backstory, my Tiefling Rogue. I mentioned my Tiefling Rogue's parents, but never mentioned anyone else. Really. Lafaris's parents abandoned him at age 5 when his tiefling bloodline began to show, and that's really the only characters I mentioned in my backstory, so it's gonna be pretty awkward if the DM starts with introducing the parents and Lafaris asks, "Why did you leave me?" and bang, the arc's complete. I really didn't offer my DM anything more than that, which is a faux pas on my part. So when the DM brought in an NPC that claimed to be from Lafaris' backstory, having grown up in the same orphanage as him, it took me longer to connect to this NPC, to suss out whether their intentions were good or bad, whether they were right for me to have accompany the party in our task, or whether or not I'm going to stab them in the back because of something they did. But I don't know what they did because I didn't know anything about them. Always name your NPCs and create some little selection. Create a selection for your DM to choose, essentially. 3 or 4 NPCs named, so they can choose one of them and make them integral to the story. I realize the second point is a complete counter-argument to that. Leave gaps in your backstory. If you know everything that has happened in your character's backstory and why it happened, then there's no way to offer up the element of surprise at the table. There's a XP to level 3 video titled DMs Who Should Have Just Written a Book. That kind of works the same for players. If you know the why everything has happened, then there's no secrets to unravel. There's no reason for your character to ask questions about their past to discover more so they can understand their present. You know what I'm saying? This not only gives you the freedom to create things that flesh out your character on the fly, it also allows the dungeon master to warp your reality and change your perspective on what has happened in a dramatic twist. And I have 2 examples of this. The first one is a real simple one that Rob suggested. Him and his party were just having like some downtime, and then some reason Rob threw out that his character is afraid of spiders, and now his character is now an arachnophobic. They had a little bit of fun fleshing out this character, and that has came up in some future storylines, but it's not like a devastating twist on your character. However, I did do something a bit devastating to my players and twisted the character's thoughts on what had happened to them. I had a player's character, Graf, who was the son of one of the most renowned mafia types in his home region, but one day Graf, when he came of age, he wanted to go it alone and build his own criminal empire, much to his father's displeasure. After Graf managed to build a small drug cartel in the city, his father began to worry, so he ordered his right-hand man, Patty Boone, to squeal on him to the authorities, and Graf was sent to prison. At least, that's what Graf thought. Imagine Graf's anger and confusion when Patty Boone shows up in this new region he's in, who is oddly happy to see the person that he sent to prison. I took Graf's backstory and fleshed it out from the perspective of Patty Boone. This opened up a whole load of avenues about what could have happened, and it was a lot of fun to do. Graf had known Patty all his life. Patty had always worked for his father. Patty practically saw Graf grow up into the man he was today. He had a soft spot for Graf and quietly wanted him to succeed when he went off on his own to create his own criminal empire. So, when Graf's father became jealous, worried that his son would take over the city in the coming years, he asked Patty Boone to kill off his own son, to kill off Graf. Patty was appalled, practically shocked that his boss wasn't proud that his son had gone his own way and had taken on the family business. Patty was at a crossroads, and those crossroads led to the authorities. Patty took a plea deal, informing the authorities on Graf's criminal doings in exchange for going into witness protection and being taken to this other region under a new identity. This was a shock for my player at the table, who built his character as if he was sent to prison because he was betrayed. However, what the character didn't know is that it was for his own protection. And this leads into my next point. Never assume how your character's arc is going to go. You know what they say, assuming makes an ass out of you and the Dungeon Master, and they won't appreciate that. If you try and assume what will happen during your arc of the campaign, then there's only really two outcomes. You'll be left deflated because it isn't what you suspected would happen during your arc, which will deflate your DM, or it's exactly what you predicted, meaning there's no suitable reaction, and then your DM will be deflated again. The DMs are really coming out worse here, to be honest. I have got so many ideas for characters that I start with their backstory, and then with my DM hat on, I just plan significant moments that'll happen during their arc in the campaign, which kind of makes it hard for me to create characters because I'm already thinking 5 steps ahead of what would happen to them if I was running the campaign, but I know I'm not running the campaign, so I'm just going to be left disappointed. Or, like I say, the DM will be disappointed because I'm kind of not on the same wavelength as them. Sometimes you do just have to relinquish control, and maybe I'm only speaking to the other theatre graduates and those in the creative industry in some respect, but that's really difficult sometimes. There are logical things that should happen in a story, but alas, sadly, you are not the one in control of your character's destiny. It's the DM and the dice rolls. Whilst in this collaborative role-playing game, then sadly you're not the one holding the session notes. Whatever your DM throws at you, then you have to accept and roll with, pun very much intended there. So don't be the player who tries to help the Dungeon Master with some mild suggestions about what could happen for your character, because this is what it will be like.
There's a twist in it, isn't there? Yeah, just try and forget that, and hopefully we'll still be able to enjoy it. I bet he's a woman, that bloke. No, you think it's the future, but it's actually set in the past. It's not Earth. It's all a dream. Oh, could you not? Could you not?
Do have a clear aim for your character. Any good DM should be able to read between the lines of a character backstory and understand what the character's wants and desires are, even if you don't explicitly say, "Now Ares must hunt down the people who killed his family." You should be able to leave just subtle context clues in there for your DM to pick up on. To use 3 of my characters that represent 3 different levels of this point, I've simplified their backstory into a single sentence. Ispa the Warlock. Born into an upper-class, highly respected pure-blood sorcerer family, Ispa was a statistical anomaly, born without magical powers. So, when these powers never began to show, she had to make a deal in order to hide her shameful secret. It's fully open-ended, this backstory. How will she hide her magic? What will her family do when they find out? What does the Warlock Patron want in exchange for these powers that they are offering them? That's all up to the Dungeon Master. Lefaris, the Tiefling Rogue who I mentioned earlier. His family abandoned him after his Tiefling bloodline began to show. He now needs answers as to what his heritage is and how this has happened to him. There's a clear desire there, but no direct line to get to it. The DM knows what Lefaris wants, but how we get to that point, how we learn about his bloodline, that's up to the DM. And lastly, Harvard, my half-orc monk. Having abandoned his position as a wall guard, as well as a sickly father, and now labelled a deserter, Harvard is trying to set up his own services in protection and investigation, but with limited funds, it looks like he'll need a stunning testimonial to get his business off the ground. Maybe picking up a few jobs for the Lord's Guards would help. This backstory has the clearest goal. It offers hints throughout about how I want the character to go about it, and offers the DM a stepping stone of having the Lord's Guards as recurring NPCs and possible storylines that could stem and branch off from. And you might be thinking, and didn't you say that you shouldn't plan everything and try to lay out your character's entire campaign, Will? Yes, I did. I did say that. However, you have to acknowledge that I have purposefully made this guy a deserter. This has obviously got bad connotations to it, especially when he wants to try and get work from an elite group as renowned as the Lord's Guards. This then opens up the option that Harvard could be exposed as a deserter at any time and ridiculed, and that's going to change the course of his story forever. And lo and behold, 3 sessions ago, whilst the party was at the Lord's Guards barracks, the DM chucked in an NPC who could blow up Harvard's entire plan. I didn't actually include this NPC in Harvard's backstory. This is a hurdle that the DM has thrown at me, and I'm quite frankly very much looking forward to maneuvering this storyline. And lastly, make sure your backstory is in keeping with the campaign's theme. This is but hopefully the most obvious one, so I won't dwell on it too much because I've been recording long enough already. It's been 35 minutes. Sick. Let's get through this last one. I'll use Harvard as the example here as well because that's currently the campaign I'm playing in. The campaign is a political mystery revolving around one of the higher-ups of the city running some kind of racist campaign against fey creatures. Now, Harvard wants to set his PI business up, so what better way to do that is to work for the Lord's Guards, get some experience, learn that sometimes stealth is better than brute force as he was a wall guard, and yes, my monk's strength is his highest stat, not his dexterity, and take out a political baddie in the process. That would look fantastic for his PI's testimonials. However, if Harvard's desire was to find the One Piece treasure and sail the ocean on this very, very much primarily city-based campaign, finding the One Piece treasure would not be a good fit. Weirdly, if you are dead set on your idea for a character, this is going to require some kind of negotiation, give and take with the DM in order for you to get them comfortably engrossed in the theme of the world that you'll be taking part in. And those are my 5 tips for writing a good backstory, because remember,
perfect backstory
does not exist.
Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next session. My throat hurts.